YouTube, it's Brian Phillips again. One of my favorite T28 Trojan, T28B Trojan by Horizon Hobby, 1.2 meter. And I wanted to show you my most recent problem. You can already hear it. Good servo. Bad servo, which incidentally is also broken off. So I just wanted to show you this because I was flying this tonight. Just got done doing some repairs the other day, and I wanted to let you know kind of how I fix these things. If you haven't already seen me do it before, which it's super easy to do. Looks like I'll also be rehinging this, which again, not really a big deal, but I'm just going to show you how I do it, and you guys can take it for what it's worth. I've got the radio system on, and this is the noise you want to listen for. Got teeth. Teeth are broken in the servo. So it's pretty easy to fix this problem most of the time, especially if you have gear sets from Horizon. So I just peeled back the tape to help me remember which side it was when I was at the field where I was flying. I didn't know that this was broke, but it wasn't totally broke off, it was just partially broken. Okay, so we just trim that flush, and then this side here, we'll just trim it flush with a sharp X-Acto knife. And you can use a million different ways to hinge this. Some are easier than others, some are a little bit more effective. I'm not a huge fan of CA hinges on foam planes. They're just a little bit too stiff for my taste, so I'd prefer not use them. So why don't we go ahead and get this thing fixed first. It'll be easier. You can see this had some glue in there and just holding it at the bottom of the servo pocket. That obviously wasn't the problem at all in this case. So my first thing to do is to open up the servo. So we're going to probably want to take off this control arm. But sometimes it's kind of nice to remember what position it's in. Now you can look over at the other side, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a picture real quick so that we know the position that it needs to be in to have it neutral. And then of course you can also look down at your other servo. You want that all the way down at the bottom of the pocket. Okay, so we'll be able to refer to that later real easily. But for now, we'll just pick that back out. Unscrew this. Sometimes you don't have to take these off, but most of the time you do. Okay, so we'll just peel this out. Let me just set this off to the side for now. Work on the hinging. I usually stick this to a magnet so that I can drop the magnet and have it shoot across the floor for extra excitement. That's aluminum, so it's not going to stick. But we'll just put it there. Okay, so the next step, of course, is to open up the servo. This screwdriver will actually do it, but you know, you'd typically want to use an even smaller screwdriver. But since it's working, I'll use it. This happens to be a, whatever size that is, PH0X75, so I think it's a small size. It's obviously a precision Phillips screwdriver. So once we open this up, we'll be able to see the gear set and figure out which gear is blown out. I prefer to fix these because then I don't have to redo the whole wire and all this, although I think there's a connection point here. Wouldn't be a big deal to redo the whole servo, but it's a heck of a lot bigger deal than just fixing the gear set. Okay, so that little bit of adhesive still is kind of holding the bottom on, so I'm just going to peel that up and off of there. Now this is always easier when you can get to it easy like this, but because we'll just pull that whole bottom out. Make sure the screws don't get lost. We can set that on the magnet. Now there's three pieces to this servo: the bottom, the middle, and then the top. Okay, so you can look inside of here and just get a visual inspection quick. I can see the broken tooth right here. You want to get that broken crap out of there. Okay, it's got a little lube on it for extra fun. And basically, which one did we lose? Oh, there it is. That's on the output shaft. It's on the output. Okay, so first things first, you don't want to let this spin like that because it will make the motor hot. So you can either turn it off, or you can do what I'm going to show you here real quick. Just grab yourself a pair of pliers or whatever you can hang on to this potentiometer output shaft with. Now watch this. Ooh, really fast, really slow. Stop. Okay? So you got to get to the position that the pulse width modulation is trying to tell this to go to. Okay? That's the feedback circuit there on the trim pot. And when I say trim pot, I mean potentiometer, not trim pot. It's not really a trim pot in this case. Okay, so this is obviously where we broke. Up against that black, you can see just one little measly tooth. And that's usually about the way it works, which is a bummer, because there's these two marks on, there's these two pieces on the other side. You could almost put the thing on the other side, except that it's keyed in here. It's keyed in that hole. See how it's keyed, guys? Right there. So that key lines up with the key on the output, or the input shaft in this case. See that? And that's how all these gears work together to move your control surface to where you tell it with the stick, or the switch, or whatever you've got, sequencer, whatever it happens to be. Alright, so now our next step is to dig into our bag of goodies for servos. Oh, and watch this. It's going to turn continuously because it can't actually impact change as far as the servo is concerned. So now, obviously, one option would be to just replace the servo. That's always actually a good option. Oh, that got put in the wrong bag on accident by me. So I'm just going to grab the bag that it was supposed to be in. These are just like the output control arms and control horns. So I actually do have a new Horizon hobby, A330 sub analog micro servo, I think is what they call this. Yeah, it's an A330 sub micro analog. Yeah. So I could hypothetically just change the whole thing, but I'm probably not going to do that because I'm way too much of a cheapskate. I will wait until it's completely destroyed. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to dig into my bag of dead servos. You guys have seen this bag of tricks before. These are used servos that have been repaired or whatever. Okay. And these ones are my bad servos. And why are they bad, you might ask? Well, they're bad for a variety of different reasons. Usually, they kind of fail about the same way, but they don't always fail the same way. Thank God, otherwise they'd be sort of useless to keep. So now the fun begins. Now I need to find what looks like a similar output, which, to be honest with you, we may have a similar output here. It doesn't need to be exactly the same, but it needs to be close. Pretty close, guys. Wow, are you kidding me? Nope. Different size teeth on the output. So, obviously the broken one here is going to line up in that. And so the other option is, if you get one of these that doesn't line up with your output, you can just get the output that came with that kit, provided this lines up with your gears. And yes, you also have to consider whether or not it's going to fit the feedback circuit. Okay, so now we can test. I'm not sure we're going to stick with this one, but okay, so you see why that keeps spinning, because this isn't actually keyed to the right depth. I do not believe so. So we'll try that again, except this time I'll kind of hold it so it doesn't pop off of the pot. Yep, see, it keeps on working perfectly now. Okay, so I sort of hate to beat a dead horse, because that would actually work. However, in order to make this work, I would then have to match this output, okay? Meaning that, okay, so this is a broken one, the good one, or the one that matches. You see that doesn't meet this control horn. So it doesn't meet the control horn's dimensions. So what I'd have to do is I would have to go into my bag of goodies here and then dig in and see what size we need. And it might not be a big deal, so let's just double check quick. Okay, so that's not it. It's actually pretty small teeth. So it's more like an Emax size or something of that sort. And so I actually have these designated into different brands and manufacturers. Ooh, that's pretty close. It's not it. But you guys get the idea. It's just a guess and check game until you get it right. But I actually might have an output that's from a Horizon Hobby servo in here. And that would be the preferred method, if it can be done. Yeah, like this one here fits perfectly. Okay. So my guess is this is probably... Nope. See, it's got fine teeth. It's got fine teeth instead of coarse teeth. So now I need to figure out. Okay, so we've ruled that one out. This one's the best option. Next best option, which is still horrible and incorrect. Okay, this is also wrong, so we'll just put that in the ruled out pile. And so on and so forth until we get the right one, provided it exists. Okay, kind of the same scenario. Ooh, here's a nice coarse threaded one. But look at that, it's got a broken tooth in the same spot, probably a Horizon Hobby one. This is what being a hoarder is all about, guys. People say, why do you keep all that junk? Well, because I use it. And they say, whatever, you're never going to use it, except I actually do. So while I waste some time, I'm going to pause it and I'll come right back. Well, fortunately for me, all of these are the wrong size, and these two have the right size this way. They just have different output shaft sizes. Okay. So this one happens to be a very, very close match on the output shaft size. And it's got a stop that's in a very similar position. Okay, so I'm going to stick with this, provided I can find a control arm that will fit it. And we're not going to be super picky about which one we get. We're just going to get one that fits. And then we'll make it about the same length as the other side so that the output is very similar. Now, these are ailerons, so if the outputs weren't exactly 100% symmetrical, it's not like the plane's not going to turn, or roll rather. It's going to work, it's just not going to work as good as we'd like it to. But I can tell you right now that it's going to be close enough to operate our airplane. And it's going to be safe. So, just out of curiosity, I want to see how far off we are on these two. Yeah, that's a very different size. So basically, I just have to go in here, and then I've got, like Turnigy Metal Gear servos. I've got these These are the big ones. I forget what those are. Hobby King Metal Gear Servos. Got these giant ones. And I've organized some of them, like the Emax Metal Gear Servos, because I have quite a few of them. Looks like I had a little bit too much to fit that bag. These ones are a different size. Let's try that real quick. And these incidentally end up being, oh, still even too big. But the whole idea is these different manufacturers, like those are Emax, that needs to go with that. If you just start kind of organizing these, when you do need them, then you can go in and kind of figure them out. Here's a Spectrum one, which I will put the one that comes off of here into this bag in case I need that again for Spectrum 9 gram. But this is a really handy way of doing it if you can, so that you don't have to necessarily always replace every single servo every single time. I mean, you still have to occasionally replace a servo, don't get me wrong. It will happen still. But now I will... Ooh, Turnigy Metal Gear. I bet this is probably pretty close to the Turnigy Metal Gear size. Let's try this. There's also a Turnigy size. Nope. That's too big. That's a digital Turnigy. These are digital Metal Gear, which would be analog in this case. That feels like it might be pretty close. This needs to be correct. It can't be forced. I mean, you could actually force it on there, but you don't want to do that. So I'm going to keep searching. I'll come right back and show you what we come up with. Okay, so these ended up being Turnigy 9 gram analog servos. And so I found these ends fit. And so, of course, we'll be able to use that. But as you can see, they end up being kind of a tough thing to get on and off. And I've run into that a time or two. But just because they go on hard does not mean they're the wrong size. It's just you got to make sure that once you take them on and off a couple times, they go as expected. So now we just need to duplicate this setup. So we're going to cut off one side of this. I usually just start with a rough cut like this. And then I rough cut. And then I'll take and touch it real quick with a grinder. Just so that it doesn't catch on the foam inside. I've got a kind of a nasty edge there, so I'm going to rest this on the counter and cut that little tab off. Okay. So now we can go about trying to reassemble this. Obviously we want these to end up in the same position. So this is the Spectrum style. So we'll put that there to be reused again. And we'll hope that the screw will give us good purchase. It's got to be really similarly sized. So the screw that held that in, that's on our magnet still. Okay, so we'll just plop this on here. And it's going to find its home position as soon as we do that. You can see there's some crap in here. So I'm going to turn on my compressor. It won't take much. So basically what that did is it just took that debris out in case that debris might have been from an accident or the environment around wherever the accident happened. Okay, so now that's in there, and let's test it real quick before we go any further. Yeah, looks good. Okay, so let's reassemble the case, starting with this part so that it kind of holds things together more or less. Okay, so that holds that in position. You see why the output shaft, you want that to be similar sized. Let's test again. Oh yeah, we're good there. So now we need to get these 4 screws lined up. Of course, my screwdriver just stuck to the tool that I need there. There's a recess here That recess is the side where the wire needs to come out. It's a good time to take a look at your solder joints if you want to make sure that that servo keeps running for you. And the funny thing is, you know, people have criticized me for doing this, and thank you very much for your criticism. But until you guys find that money tree growing in your backyard and you send me a flow of cash, then I'm going to keep fixing stuff that I can fix. It's not just about the money though, but I'm probably not going to ever buy a servo from Horizon Hobby unless I'm buying an ARF plane that's really expensive and I'm concerned about warranty issues. I just think that some of their items, they've just a little bit too proud of them. That's not to say that they're not good. They are good. But looky here, I'm fixing a servo. I mean, granted, it wasn't their fault I crashed the thing. Okay, so we'll just set this down. And I am able to fix it, which, you know, kudos to them for that. Okay, so I went in there, got a little strain relief action going there. Now I can grab my screwdriver once the magnet lets go. And I'm not going to tighten this, I'm just going to get them kind of started so that they don't come flying out on me. And once I get them started, then I'll go ahead and fight this wire just a little bit more. I just got to tuck it in there just a hair. Okay, so now it's able to snap down. You just want to make sure you don't twist this thing or damage the board, because that little controller board, of course, is quite critical. It's what helps to determine your position. So, alright, cool. So we're going to tighten these 4 screws. Make sure we get good purchase and we don't have any pinching on the cable, which we don't. We've got it laid down flat. I apologize, that tape is really being annoying, isn't it? Okay, so once we have this tight, we can go ahead and get the control arm back on there, and then we'll get it glued back in. But it's not, I mean, this isn't a hard thing to do. Hardest part is going to be picking up all that crap over there. So that's the moral of the story, guys. When I see somebody crash a plane and they're like, oh, I'm just going to throw it away. You know, in the moment, in the heat of the moment after losing a plane, yes, I can appreciate the feeling. But just suck it up. Go get your debris. 9 out of 10 items are going to be perfect. And then 1 out of 10 is going to be totally destroyed. Alright, cool. So now we can just drop this down in here. As you can see, it's kind of pulling my cable tight because I put a little bit more cable inside of the servo than was there initially. Not a huge issue, but it is kind of yanking on it a little bit. I might have to loosen that and pull a little extra out. Got maybe a little bit overzealous on how much I wanted in there for a strain relief. And a strain relief meaning less pressure is going to be transmitted into the cable itself. Okay. As a result of somebody yanking on the cable. Shouldn't be a lot of yanking on this cable, except for right now. Okay, I need a little bit more yet. Okay, got it. Now we're able to seat down without pinching our foam. So that means we have it correct. So what's the moral of the story, guys? Beyond all these little details I keep throwing out there, the moral of the story is fly your planes a lot. When you see a strange behavior, land and figure out what's going on. Most of the time it's something small, but sometimes you'll have to ground it until you have a chance to fix it. Today was one of those events, and it wasn't really that big a deal. But, I mean, I could have flown with one aileron servo, but the problem is once you lose the other one, then you're done. You'll crash in an uncontrolled heap of rubble. Unless, of course, you have enough authority with your rudder, you could overwhelm it. I would suggest that you probably won't end up in that condition. Okay, so we're just going to slide this son of a gun on in an approximate angle to what we had prior to our repairs starting. And how are we going to know what the angle was, guys? We're going to whip out the cell phone that we took the picture on. and we'll pull up the picture that we just took. Would you look at that? Okay, so that's our angle, and it looks like we might actually need to go one more step over. Moving it. Seems a little bit wonky still. I have to get this screw in here right away before we continue. I've got one concern. Not 100% sure I've got that right yet. We'll have to tighten this screw first to see. It's hard to tell for sure, but I could also mark that. That's the other method. I just don't like the marking method because then it never seems to stay marked. Okay, so now that I've got that tightened a couple of turns, I got to get it tightened all the way, but I want to see if this is going to work. Okay, now I'm going to resist. Oh yeah, it's got torque. It's got torque. So I think we're going to be okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and get full purchase on this screw here. This screwdriver sucks pretty bad, so I'm going to actually get a different screwdriver. I don't know why it's not doing such a good job for me, but I'm just going to use this crappy Chinese one that is designed to work with crappy Chinese screws. And boy, that worked really good actually. Thank you, Free Ring, or wherever I got this from. This might have been from Tianshang. I'm not sure which one gave me this one. Okay, ailerons. Oh yeah, baby. Oh yeah. Okay, so now we get to get the hinge figured out. So that'll be our next step, and we've more or less got this done. I don't want to glue it in yet because it'll make it harder to get everything kind of put back together. Unfortunately, we are going to have to either reposition this because it looks like it's not the same as the other home position over there, or we'll have to extend this out a little bit. And I honestly think we were probably just a touch closer at the last position. It's frustrating to have to do this stuff, but it's worth it. You only got to get it right once, unless you crash repeatedly like I like to do. Then you have to get it right once each crash that you have to repair it. So, good deal, right? See, that's pretty fairly straight up and down. I don't know, I'm torn now. I think that's probably where I'm going to do it. And then anything beyond that I'll have to adjust with the control here, with the clevis. Now lucky for us, those screws bite their own channels through the plastic, so we only have to work hard once and then it's fairly easy to get them in and out. That, my friends, look like maybe some trimming is in there, and you can tell because this one's up just slightly and then this one's down just slightly, well, or up and then down. Alright, let's figure out what hinge we're going to use real quick and let's get it done. So I might pause it and clean up a little bit and we'll come back to the hinges. Alright guys, so I got my hinge bag out, and there's just quite a few different styles of hinges that would work for this application. You might even be able to do a tape hinge, but if you do a tape hinge you got to kind of do a funky way. So this would be my primary method here. These things work really nice and they're super strong, and I almost never have problems. And since I already put one in here when I fix this side, I think I should probably go ahead and stick to this. Now I'm just going to double check. I've got small and larger ones. And I honestly am not 100% sure what I used on this. I can't remember. Looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Are the other ones 1, 2, 3, 4 hinge points? Yeah, there's still 4, but they're thicker. The 4 of them are. Okay, so I like these because they're easy to work with, and they're not overly crazy expensive. I mean, they're a heck of a lot more than CA hinges, but to be honest, it's just easier to work with. I just get sick of having to redo hinges, or well, not redo hinges, but I get frustrated with having hinges that produce too much torque load for the servos. So I actually really wanted to show you one other hinge style, but I guess I'll have to save that for another crash, which I'm sure will soon come. But yeah, if you're looking for what I'm using here, here's the Dubro number 119. They have another size that's they have another package that's like, I think it's 118 maybe, and it's just the same thing, just happens to be a different amount in the bag, if I recall. So that's one thing. Dubro makes some good stuff. It's just sometimes it's a lot too bulky for my micro applications. And I have to remind myself that I actually work in a pretty small scale plane still. There's guys that are doing planes that are significantly larger than this. Okay, so obviously we want to cut a hole. I want to be in a little bit from the edge. But I think to yourself, why would you want it in from the edge? Well, you want it in from the edge, guys. Just take my word for it. I'll tell you why. You want it in from the edge because you're going to get some strength on either side. And if you go all the way to the edge, you might have to throw 3 of these in. But you want to be supporting it very close to where your hinge is going. Dang it. I might have screwed myself there. You see what I did, guys? I think I might have gone just a little bit too far over. So we'll see. We'll just we'll give it a shot first. See if that's going to let me go in, because there'll be some plastic in here. Oh no, I think I'm good. I think I lucked out. There's the screw. I'm hitting it with the side of my blade. So we'll just see if that'll slip right in the hole. Because if it slips right in, woo! Oh yeah. Oh, nope. It forced CFR forced me way over. No big deal. No big deal. Not like this plane hasn't seen phone poles at near landing speed. Okay, so then we'll come over here and we'll kind of figure on our mark with our finger. Right in the center. If you go to 3 hinges, it does complicate things a lot too, because 3 hinges are a lot harder to line up than 2. I can tell you that from experience. Probably thinking to yourself, why would I listen to you, Brian? Sound like you crash a lot. No, I fly a lot. And if you fly a lot, you're going to crash a lot. Unless, of course, you do mamsy-pamsy flying where you never take a risk. Just kidding. Okay, so we'll just slip those in. Kind of get the hinges so that they're square-ish. See how they're kind of square now? And then this one's not quite square. See how it's at an angle? You gotta kind of get this situated before you try to glue them in. You would think that it'll straighten itself out, but it won't actually do that. So sometimes you gotta take your blade and work the pocket a little bit. Okay, so now that's nice and straight, and that one's straight enough to get the job done. And I suppose if a guy was kind of like crazy, you could just not glue it, but I'm not that crazy. I am going to glue it. I'm not going to use CA either. I'm going to use mucilage. Oh yeah, baby. Enough torque to pull it in and out of the pocket, so I think we're good there. Okay, so now we need to get some mucilage on here, and mucilage, if you guys are familiar with my channel, it's commonly referred to as pops in your hand, on your mouth. Here's part number. This stuff dries out. If you get the large size, this is the large size. This is all rolled up here. A large size looks like this when it's new. And do not open before using these two. Okay, this is what it looks like. So it's a pretty good amount. It stays supple and easy to use as long as you don't open it. Once you open it, it's pretty much there. It's opened. So this stuff always likes to dry. This is from my A10 Thunderbolt from Freewing, but this is the small size, if I recall. It's very similar to that, if not the exact size. Okay, so we'll see if either of these will give us any, because they're probably dried out pretty bad. Now you can actually, believe it or not, stick this in a hot cup of water and it will soften up, which we're going to be doing again tonight, but I'm going to pause it and spare you guys the boredom of that. Alright guys, so we warmed this thing up and now it's nice and squishy. So we'll see, hopefully there's not any water in here. If there is, we'll just a little drip. So once it's warm, it comes out just like it's new. So we got to glue all this stuff together, including the hinges and that servo, into place. Then we'll actually use a little mucilage to hold this down too. So I think what we'll do is we'll go ahead and just pick this up out of the pocket so it's easy to manipulate positions. We'll slip these out one at a time. We'll just pull them back and just very carefully apply a minimal amount. You don't hardly need any of this stuff to hold these hinges in. I mean, they practically hold themselves in anyway. And you'll be surprised how crazy strong it is. If you haven't already worked with it, you'll know what I'm talking about when you do this. You can apply some lubricant to the to that area if you're nervous about them getting glued stuck. But my experience is that doesn't really happen so much with the mucilage. It's more like on the CA end of things. Okay, so we'll just spread that a little bit. And this stuff dries like almost instantly. Usually I'll pull them in and out and then just squeeze the foam a little bit. Yeah, see, like I don't even think I could get that out without damaging the foam now. That's one of the advantages of using this stuff when it's old. It cures like instantaneously. I don't know. Advantage today, disadvantage another day. Just depends on what you're trying to do, I suppose. Get a little bit on there, a little bit on there. And then I'll just put a little bit on the tip of this. This is just like a bamboo skewer. And we'll spin it. Spin it. And we'll spin off some of it. Kind of get it tacked up. The stuff, you can smell it. I'm sure it's probably not a good thing to ingest a bunch of it, but it's good to be able to smell the smell so you know that it's working. That it's cooking off. Okay, so I'm just gonna try to get these things lined up halfway decent. And we got to get both sides started at once, which is always fun. Okay, there we go. And we'll just slide that in. Now I've got a little bit of glue that's kind of popped out of this side here. So before we push it all the way tight, we'll just grab this and just use the Q-tip. It'll just pull right out. We'll just kind of do that on both sides real quick. Just give it a spin, and it will, for sure, get it out of there. Okay? Okay, so we're into the position where we want it. Now we can dry fit the servo again for just a quick second. We'll just kind of hold that. Okay. So now this is a little bit further back than that one just because we couldn't get it to go like this. It had to be more like this, so we'll have to adjust this in a little bit. And we'll do this before we glue the servo down, just to make life easier. So probably just go 1 half, 2 halves, 3 halves, 4 halves. So 2 turns total. On the outermost position, snap it back in. We're just a little bit below flush, which makes sense because we're a little bit above and a little bit below. So that would constitute the trimming on the plane. And now we can go ahead and glue in the servo. which is super easy, and you really don't need a ton of glue on these, but whatever makes you feel better. If you go too crazy, then you'll just have a heck of a time getting them out the next time you need to do something like this. But you don't want them to just totally come out either. And you can see this is getting hard already, and it's only been, I had it sitting in warm water for a few minutes, just kind of sitting there chilling. Just kind of squeezing it out, just getting this little mess here. So we'll just go a little bit here and there. You don't hardly need any. And we'll just push it down in. Okay, so it's in now. You can see it's very hard to pull out now, which is what we want. And then we're going to come in here and grab a little bit more. A very small amount for this layer. And this is just going to go along here and just tack up this decal strip. This decal strip's been reused a few times. Okay, so we'll just kind of twist this on there. And it's amazing how well this works. All I'm doing is just, whoops, you don't want them to stick together like that because it will be hard to get it off. Okay. Then you'll just set this down, walk it down. And you can see it's been all stretched out because I've actually gotten at it before when I did the lighting. And just work the air bubbles or whatever out. Looks like we got some paper or something there, so we'll get that out of there. Okay, great. So now the final test will be to go ahead and run the servos, and we should be good to go. I think we've got it though. And as usual, we really appreciate you being part of our experience here. There you have it, folks. Fixed good as new, minus being new, minus being as good. It's fixed like before it was crashed, sort of, but not quite as good. But I didn't have to buy a $20 servo. Alright guys, come back for more. Do yourself a favor and just buy the servo. If you don't mind wasting the money, it is a little bit easier. But I happen to peel power off for my LEDs. So, would have been a little bit more work on my end. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Come back for more. You know the drill. Like and subscribe. We really appreciate you coming back. Check the link in the description below. There's a bunch of them for the common stuff we use. And we appreciate you buying from those links. It helps support our channel. No matter how small. Buy a bottle of CA. Buy a receiver. Whatever it takes. You're going to buy it anyway. Just find something that meets your budget, and that's one way you can really help support us. So, and without further ado, have a good evening, guys. We got something cool coming here pretty soon. Keep your eyes open.